any movies over the last week?
I did, actually. I watched
Okay.
I watched a couple good ones that
Okay.
we could talk about.
So we got some stuff to talk about.
Right, yeah. One, I was hoping... I kind of watched specifically because I know like the three of us have seen it, and I thought that'd be a good one for all of us to talk about.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you were strategic about one of the choices.
Yes, I was. And the other one was one I had seen already, but I just like watched again because it's just a good one. And it's another one that I know Dana has seen. I don't know if you've seen it, but we'll figure that out. Oh, we're going right now, aren't we?
Yeah, we're on.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, hey everybody, welcome to Super Celluloid Bros. It is that time of the week again.
Yeah, this is a video podcast of sorts where it's based around the highly innovative idea of a couple of guys sitting around talking about movies.
Yes, exactly. And we knew that like this was such an original thing that no one is doing that we had to be the first to it. Otherwise, because now everyone's just jumping on this bandwagon that we created.
Yeah,
So,
and if you look, a lot of them stole our idea before we had it.
I know. It drives me absolutely nuts. And I try to do copyright claims, but no luck yet. And the system, man. The man's just getting us down.
I am half of your hosting team, DisRegarding Henry. I'm joined by...
his lesser half. What's my name? Bretflix Mazurski. How are you, Henry?
I'm doing well. How about you, Bretflix?
Pretty good. It's been a good week. How was your week?
I had a good week. I wrapped on, or more or less wrapped on, the short film I'm shooting right now.
Now getting into post-production, the fun part?
Yeah, pretty much. Yesterday was the last day of filming. It was our third day. And we'd had to take like a couple weeks off because the main actor was leaving on vacation with his family, and the cinematographer, who also was getting us access to the equipment, he was visiting family in LA. So we shot like 2 days, 1 week, and then the next week, if I remember correctly, like a month ago. And then we had to take some time off, wait for everyone to get back into town, and then we finally did the last day yesterday. We've still got like a couple pickup shots we need to do, just with elements we couldn't get together, in time. But it's all like cutaway stuff, so we can go back anytime to get that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all been handed over to the editor, and now I'm just gonna wait to see like the assembly cut, and then go from there, figure out what we're gonna do with it.
Ooh, that's got to be exciting.
Yeah, everyone's feeling pretty good about it. We had a lot of fun making it, and I'm eager to go on to the next one. More than just trying to finish the current one. I just want to like start filming the next one.
Yeah, hopefully people's families don't get in the way of the next one. Darn it.
Yeah.
Slowing things down.
Yeah. But I also made some time to watch some movies. I actually watched quite a few over the last week.
Yeah. Which ones were your favorite?
My favorite, I gotta try and think about all the ones I saw. I definitely saw some really good ones. I saw some ones that were okay. I rewatched one, which was probably the best one that I watched over the last week. But I rewatched Schindler's List.
Ooh, wow. It's a good one.
A very good one. Yeah, I hadn't seen it in a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen that one. I've only ever seen that one a couple times because it's a tasking movie.
It's intense. It's very intense. Yeah.
Heavy stuff. Yeah.
Very heavy. And it actually, I don't know about you, but I find that like as I'm getting older, like when I was in high school and first like discovering a lot of movies, I kind of felt like I could take anything. Like there was a sort of detachment when I would watch a lot of stuff that like, no matter how visceral it was or how realistic it was, there was always like an awareness in me that like, it's only a movie, it's not real. And so I could kind of handle anything without really being that affected by it. And I found that as I've gotten older, I find myself much more easily susceptible to like stuff of emotional intensity. I find myself much more deeply affected by it. Because I think when I was a teenager, I just wanted, and I'm sure like a lot of young guys, it's just you want intense visceral imagery. You just want stimulation. You just want, stuff coming at you. You don't really care about a story or characters. You just want a lot of intense imagery. That's really what I was after for most of my like earliest years of cinema going. And now I find myself responding much more to stories and to characters, and I get much more deeply like emotionally invested in stuff. So while I certainly really appreciated a movie like Schindler's List when I was younger, I don't think the full like impact of it really hit me until watching it again like a couple days ago, where I actually found myself like frequently leaving the room because I just couldn't handle it up to a certain point. It's like, I just need to take a break from this and go do something else, recollect myself a little bit, and then come back in and continue watching.
Yeah, I think as you get older, you just have more experiences, and it's easier for you to just feel empathy for people and stuff.
To identify,
exactly. And you're just more aware of like just what's going on in the world, and like when you're a teenager, the only thing you care about are like, I don't know, boobs and just having a good time. That's about hobbies, it. Sometimes those friends, two things go
partying,
exactly. I can still feel that detachment if I'm watching like a slasher movie. Like I'm okay with people getting cut to pieces in a slasher movie because I see those mostly as comedies anyway.
Yeah, it's detached from reality.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But something like Schindler's List, or recently we talked about Silence, like those movies just feel real, and they're tough experiences, and you just feel like so much like emotional weight on you when you watch it.
Yeah, they hit you in a much deeper way, certainly. Yeah, and I was reading about Schindler's List and was finding that incredibly fascinating too, like the whole history behind it. Not World War II, obviously, everybody knows about that.
Yeah.
But like the history of the production itself, that it was one of these movies that spent a long time like in development. And Spielberg movies are fascinating anyways, because he's somebody that like, he never does anything half-assed. There's always a really long process for each of his projects because he's so careful, he's so selective, and he always tries to do, I feel, something really different and unique with each one, and pushing himself in different ways with each movie that he makes. And Schindler's List was one that apparently took like 10 years from when he first like got the rights to the story to when he finally actually directed it in 93. And apparently like he didn't want to make it for the longest time. Like when he got it in 83, he was like, I'm not ready to make this. I am not a mature enough filmmaker. And he tried for years to hand it off to other directors. Like he tried to give it to Roman Polanski, but Polanski, who is an actual survivor of the Holocaust, said like, there's no way I can do that. That'd be too personal for me. And then apparently he tried to get Billy Wilder to do it, which would have been a very interesting choice. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it would have been.
And apparently Wilder really wanted to do it, but for whatever reason, it never worked out. And a couple other directors, I forget exactly.
Didn't Scorsese think about doing it at one point, or am I thinking of something else? Yeah.
Scorsese was the official director for a few years, and by the time the early 90s rolled around, like Scorsese had been attached for a little while, and it finally got to the point where Spielberg was realizing, like, I really need to make this. Like, this is something that's been with me for so long, and I spent so much time thinking about, I really need to be the one to do this. And so they actually exchanged projects. Spielberg was going to do the Cape Fear remake, and Scorsese was going to do Schindler's List, and they traded projects.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. That is how I remember hearing about Scorsese's involvement with Schindler's List. Like, imagine there's a universe out there where.
I think we lost Bretflix.
Disappear.
Oh, there you are.
Okay, I just got a phone call. My sister's blowing up my phone right now. Anyway, yeah, but there's a universe out there where Scorsese made Schindler's List and Spielberg made Cape Fear, and I would love to see those versions. I mean, I'm glad we have the versions we have now, but those versions would be so different.
Yeah, it's a weird thought. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was reading also like about, I think we lost Bretflix again.
Sorry.
Yeah,
sorry. I do this every week on my cell phone, normally they're just text messages, so I just don't touch them and there's no issue. But I'm actually getting phone calls right now. I apologize.
That's okay. We'll try to deal with it best we can. Does like the stream cut out for you? Like do you lose everything?
Yeah. Well, I think like my screen goes up to my receiving phone call screen, and I have to hit the button like decline.
Oh, so you can't hear or see anything?
Yeah, you cut out for a second.
Okay, yeah, you cut out entirely as well.
Oh, okay.
We'll just roll with it.
We'll plow through it. I'm sure it's my sister calling me again, so I'm sure she'll give up in just a second. So. Anyway.
Yeah, but I was just reading more about like the production and like how intense it was to make, that like Spielberg really got into it, that it was kind of like a process, almost like a really personal journey he went through with making it. And it was such a huge risk, like to do a big like studio movie that was shot in black and white, that was 3 hours long, that was about the Holocaust, very, intense material, not exactly like marketable stuff. There certainly probably weren't any like focus groups done that said like people really wanted to see a movie about the Holocaust, but it was something that Spielberg felt so strongly about and that he really wanted to do, like as uncompromisingly as he could possibly do it. So it was kind of like a thing where like he had to make Jurassic Park, which is also a really good movie. He kind of had to do that for Universal Studios in order to get the financing for Schindler's List, which when you look at it, you think Schindler's List, like there's so many extras, there's so many big set pieces. This thing must have cost like $100 million, and it only costs like $20 million, which, which is a lot for you or I, but for a big Hollywood film, that's not a lot, especially on the scale that he was doing it. Yeah. And he was apparently the one, like, he said basically like he felt so strongly about the subject matter and the story that he wanted to be as realistic and as uncompromising as he possibly could. So like he was apparently the one saying like, no, this needs to be 3 hours. We need to really delve into everything. We need to expand it all and really tell this story. He was the one saying that like we need the violence to be harsh and brutal, and like he was saying like certain sequences of the movie he wanted to be almost unwatchable because he felt like that was the only way to actually do it. And he didn't take any directing fee. He used all of the profits from the movie to set up a charity, and basically said like he directed it with the intent, or not with the intent, but he directed it basically expecting it to flop. It was just this thing he had to get out of himself. And then it wound up becoming this huge hit, and he set up the Shoah Foundation with the success of that movie.
Yeah, won Oscars and stuff. Like,
yeah.
It is kind of surprising that a movie like that is so popular, because those aren't usually the popular movies out of any year.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, again, to bring up Scorsese, because Silence didn't get that wide of a release, I don't think, because like a lot of theaters didn't have it. Yeah, I remember being really excited for it to come out, and the theater in our hometown didn't play it, and I was like devastated. And it didn't get any Oscar nominations, which was unusual for Scorsese at this time, because
I believe
movie he's done basically since like Gangs of New York has got a Best Picture nomination. So
yeah, I believe they did get a Best Cinematography nomination.
Oh, okay. But like, yeah, just movies like that aren't popular. People don't usually be like, oh, hey, let's go to the movies. Let's go see this depressing Holocaust drama. They just don't really say that.
Yeah.
They want to see romance and action and
yeah. You want to see Indiana Jones. That's the battle against the Nazis they want to see.
Yeah, exactly.
Not Schindler's List, but there was something about it, something in it that people must have responded to, or that they could recognize, and that really drove people to go see it. It was almost kind of like, it seemed like a national obligation from what I've read, where like even the president, Bill Clinton, was urging people like, you really need to see this movie. This is an important thing. Sort of like, I guess like what happened like with The Revenant, maybe, which is maybe the most recent example I can think of, a really big, incredibly brutal and incredibly uncompromising, like big Hollywood movie that was actually a huge success. That there was just something about it that people were able to recognize, like, this is something really special. This is the kind of movie that we don't get often. And it's not exactly entertaining in the conventional sense, but it's an achievement of a spectacular caliber, and it's something to actually go and witness and experience. Every once in a while, it feels like a movie like that comes along that that isn't exactly, it's not Marvel, it's not, some kind of easy entertainment, and it's very adult, but there's still some kind of wide acceptance that it finds, just because people are able to recognize something special about it.
Yeah, sometimes they do have that sort of appeal. The Revenant, that's a good example, because I was able to get several people to go see that movie and to even buy it when it came out and stuff. And I think all of them got back to me and said, I loved it. And
wow.
It's very, very strange. Like, high art isn't normally accessible.
Yeah. You think about moments in like The Revenant that are like almost like a Tarkovsky film, where the camera is just kind of floating through the wilderness, and it's basically just trying to immerse you, in the time and setting. And there's not a lot, of action or storytelling happening. It is more something more kind of elemental that it's trying to do. And yeah, most audiences you would expect like, this is boring. And I'm sure a section of them were, but it seems like the majority of them were like, this is amazing. I've never seen a movie like this.
Yeah, movies like that will break through, but then Terrence Malick movies have a hard time.
Yeah, Tree of Life didn't quite, meet the same acceptance from a wide audience.
Yeah.
That one kind of got rejected.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So yeah, it's I don't remember the last time I watched Schindler's List. It's probably been like 7 or 8 years since I've seen that movie.
Yeah, I'd forgotten just how great it was. I think you just tend to, or at least a lot of us tend to think of it like, oh, it's great because it's important.
Right.
But I really watched it this last time, looked at, the way it was shot, the way it was edited, the way scenes are cross-cut and juxtaposed with one another, the way Spielberg like kind of creates visual contrasts, between characters or moments, and just the incredible way he tells the story. Like, as harsh as it is, like, it's such a spectacularly well-made movie. Like, there's never a moment where he's holding on a scene for too long, or he's kind of just repeating the same piece of information. It's a movie that's like 3 hours and 15 minutes, and there's not really an ounce of fat on it. It just keeps moving forward and keeps you engaged and invested the entire time. And it's weird saying this about this movie, but it is also very entertaining, like in certain sections when you see like Schindler like charming the Nazi party, and you see him kind of ingratiating himself into that world so that he can, get rich and make a lot of money off of this war. The whole way that's done, the whole way Spielberg stages it, the whole way it's written and performed and edited, it's very entertaining. And you kind of start to like, Schindler for his ability to, just manipulate all of that bureaucracy, behind fascism, and use it to his advantage. And then as the movie kind of grows more and more harsh, like there's that whole 15-minute sequence, like showing the liquidation of the Jewish ghetto, where it's 15 minutes of sheer horror and violence and brutality. And the movie starts to shift, and it starts to become darker and darker. And the character starts to undergo a change where he becomes preoccupied not just with trying to make money for himself, but with trying to help people and use his abilities for manipulating bureaucracy for something selfless instead of selfish. And it's amazing, that gradual arc, that gradual development, where it's never boring, but at the same time, it's never like trying to tell everything to you in an obvious way, like, oh, here's where the character now makes this decision. It's all very subtly played, and it trusts in the intelligence of the audience. It's really extraordinary, and it feels like no other Spielberg movie too. Like, just it's all on locations, it's all like with handheld cameras, like where they're just kind of capturing moments as they happen, shooting it like a documentary. It's amazing, like the emotional power of it, the immediacy of it. It's an amazing, like, just staggering achievement in filmmaking.
Yeah, it's one of the few movies that helps you like sort of understand, at least as much as, you know, young people can, just like how intense the Holocaust must have been. And I think the only other movie that I've seen that's been sort of on that level might be The Gray Zone, the Tim Blake Nelson movie.
Yeah, very
Like,
underseen film.
yeah, for sure. Because I remember there were moments in The Gray Zone that like were more horrifying than anything you'd see in a horror movie, and like it like wrecks your world watching that movie.
Yeah.
Just to think, I remember there's a sequence in that movie when David Arquette's like leading a bunch of people basically into the gas chamber, just telling them like, yep, it's a shower, that's all we're doing is you're getting cleaned off. And then he shuts the door and he like sits against the wall and like sits on the floor, and the camera just like comes in on his face and holds there as you hear everyone in the chamber behind him screaming because they realize what's happening and people are starting to suffocate and die and stuff. And like it just holds on that image, and that right there, that's like it's a simple thing, but I don't want to say I understand what it was like to be in the Holocaust. I don't, but I think that's the closest I've come to sort of understanding that. And Schindler's List, The Gray Zone are two of the best movies I've ever seen. And they're like movies I think people like have to see. I don't care if you're into movies or what. It's just they're so important. I mean, they're about human suffering, so they're tough to sit through. But like, it's an incredible human suffering that can't be quantified, and it didn't happen all that long ago. It wasn't even 100 years ago. It's still like recent history, and they are intense experiences. Both of them.
Yeah. And it's kind of weird reading about part of the reason like why Spielberg made Schindler's List. Like apparently after the fall of the Berlin Wall in like the late 80s, there was a brief time where like neo-Nazism like started coming back, kind of like it is now.
Yeah.
And that apparently like really gave Spielberg a sense of urgency, that he was very frightened by what he was seeing happening in the world, and felt like a story like Schindler's List really needed to be told more than ever, just to kind of remind people of the costs and the horror of fascism. And it's really scary to say now, but like we might be in need of another movie like that just to kind of remind us, because unfortunately, yeah, as big a lesson as history can present us, like people all too often forget, and we just find ourselves repeating the same mistakes over and over again.
Yeah, when like there's new generations of people that come along that only know about the past through like history books, they don't really consider like how extreme these things are. And I know,
yeah, or they just aren't aware of it at all.
Yeah, sure. So like I think now like a lot of the neo-Nazis you see, I mean, I don't know. I'm assuming a lot of things about how neo-Nazis think, but I think that they think, or they don't think about the actual atrocities that Nazis committed, 80 plus years ago.
It's just kind of like an abstract thing in their heads.
Yeah. And all they're thinking is like, oh, we just want to be like super American or something. Or I mean, I don't know.
There definitely is a nationalism behind it.
Yeah. And I think maybe that's where their thought process starts. I don't know. I don't delve a whole lot. I don't go down the neo-Nazi rabbit holes.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what they think, but I know that they don't know what Nazis really did to people. I mean, the ways they tortured them and starved them and murdered them. I think if they knew that stuff, they wouldn't want to be Nazis. I mean,
one would hope.
Evil. Yeah, sure. Yeah, one would hope, or at least there'd be less Nazis out there.
Yeah. I think that is like the valuable thing about like, especially movies though, because they're such an immediate and an emotionally direct art form. Like you can drive home the power of a certain moment, or drive home the power of a statement, like what you said about the scene in the Gray Zone, by just focusing in on a human face and focusing in all of that tragedy on just a single human being and a single human face, and the real human impact that something like that has. When you personalize it, humanize it like that, then it becomes almost impossible to ignore, because we're human beings. We're empathic, it's difficult for us not to sympathize.
Yeah. Was it Ebert who said, like, the more specific you make something, the more universal it is? I think he was the one who said that when he was talking about movies, because, like, I'll sit in class and I'll hear about the horrors of the Holocaust, but what really made me feel it was when I watched David Arquette's character feel the horrors by narrowing it down to just one person, specifically this guy's experience in the Holocaust. Like, that is what made me feel what I feel like I should have been feeling. And
it's not just data.
Yeah, exactly.
It's an emotion.
Yeah, it's not just numbers or anything like that. And that's the great thing about people, like you said, we can empathize. And
one thing that gives me hope.
Right, yeah. And movies have been a great doorway into other ways of living and cultures and stuff for me, because I don't get out very much. I just sit inside and play video games all day and watch movies. So I don't experience a whole lot of what's out in the world, and movies have been my way of doing that. And so because of movies, I like to think I have a love for everybody, and they've been very impactful in my life because of that. So I'm really thankful for movies like Schindler's List to help give me somewhat of an idea of what the Holocaust was like, because otherwise I probably wouldn't think much of it.
Yeah, or just what life was like for specific people in a specific time and place,
Right.
And it could be something like Schindler's List, or it could be something like Unforgiven, or just about anything else. Platoon, just movies that are about people in a time and place. But they're very big historical events, but they're not really about those historical events. They're just about the individuals that went through them.
Right, exactly.
Well, I don't know. Do you want to lighten the tone a little bit and talk about another movie?
I can do that. Kind of bouncing off of what's your brother doing, because I want some of his input on this movie. Call him out. If he doesn't come back, then
my door is shut, so I don't know if he's going to hear me.
All right. Well, he'll just have to miss out. Okay.
He said he'll probably pop in at some point.
Okay. Well, anyway, like kind of what you mentioned earlier, going off of that, about how, like, sometimes a movie breaks through and gets seen by a lot of people, even because of its heavy subject matter. One of the movies I watched was kind of like that. One that did sort of well, and I wouldn't have expected it to. I saw Arrival, the Denis Villeneuve movie.
Great movie. Yeah.
I heard of a lot of people seeing that movie and liking it. Like, people in my family that don't care about, thought-provoking movies. They just want to be entertained. Like my oldest sister mentions that movie pretty often and says, like, "Oh, that's such a good one." And I'm surprised she was into it. Oh, you just disappeared.
Did I?
Yeah.
I still see you.
Oh, okay. Anyway, and also just because I just watched Enemy recently, I was like, oh, I should put Arrival on. And that movie was great. Like, it was beautiful. Like, at first I thought it was like a Terrence Malick movie. I thought maybe I accidentally put on a Terrence Malick movie that had Amy Adams in it.
Yeah, it does have a very Malickian opening.
It does. Like, all the stuff of her memories just feel like they were shot by Malick and Lubeski. And it was beautiful. I mean, visually beautiful, but also just like the way it all pays off. I'm trying not to spoil anything for anyone who hasn't seen it, but the way everything pays off in the end, like, it was tragic, but still, like, so sweet. It was kind of bittersweet. It was so sweet. Like you just wanted to cry because I
did cry
of how happy it was. But that was a quick 2 hours. That movie, I think, comes in just under 2 hours, like by a few minutes. And it was a quick 2 hours. Like, the movie was over and I didn't even really realize that everything was wrapping up. I loved pretty much everything about the movie. I can't really think of things I didn't like.
Yeah, I'm same way. I adore that movie, and yeah, just Denis Villeneuve is such an extraordinarily skilled storyteller. He just pulls you in a way that very few directors are able to. Just gets you so absorbed in a story and gets you so invested and hypnotizes you so effectively that yeah, you just find yourself just being pulled along from moment to moment, and he invests it with such a sense of weight, you know, and such a sense of like colossal importance. Like too many, there are an awful lot of alien invasion movies where it almost feels like inconsequential. Like where a lot of the characters are just kind of like, oh shit, aliens. Well, let's focus on doing this thing now. And Arrival is one of those movies that really makes you feel like the colossal impact of that, of everybody feeling an emotion so big at an event so big that they don't even really know how to express it. And somehow Villeneuve, in the way he tells that story, is able to capture that feeling of something monumental, so that when you watch it, you're just like, oh my God, this is happening. This is really happening.
Yeah. The thing that set this apart from the other two movies of his that I've seen, which is Enemy and Blade Runner, was like the emotional reaction I had to it. Because with Enemy and Blade Runner, it was all like about tone, and I loved the visuals and stuff. And I wasn't totally like I didn't really care about what was, hey, I saw you looking off camera. But I didn't know what was really happening. What's up, buddy? Can you hear me? Right now. Oh, you fucking
yeah, I got it set up so it all comes through my headphones.
Any way that I can plug in, or
we're talking about Arrival right now.
Oh, cool.
Do you have headphones? I'm not sure. I only have one headphone jack. I'm not sure how we're gonna do this.
I can just come in next time if you want. Just thought I'd come and say hi.
What happens if you unplug
maybe I can do this. I'm worried it'll pick up on my microphone though and create like a feedback loop.
Oh, I see.
Start talking.
How's the sound?
It sounds fine.
Okay, well we can hear you, so we'll try it like this.
Okay, good. Yeah. Just to catch you up to speed, Denny boy. We're talking about Arrival.
Did you just see it?
Yeah, I saw it a few nights ago for the first time. And,
cool.
Yeah, and I really loved it. And I was just mentioning how like the emotional response I had to the movie and how different that was from the other Villeneuve movies that I've seen, because like I've only seen Enemy and Blade Runner, and it was all like I was just wrapped up in the tone of those movies and the atmosphere, and I loved the effects and stuff like that, but I wouldn't say I was connecting exactly. But with Arrival, definitely, like I was crying at the end, and I cared like what happened, and I started to like put myself in that world, like, oh, how would I react if aliens showed up? Like, what would I realistically do? I was fascinated at the ways they tried to communicate with them, and listening to Amy Adams like kind of talk about language as sort of like the philosophy behind it, and like how she would break down these sentences, I found fascinating. She took a simple sentence like, what's your purpose here, or whatever, and she broke it down for Forrest Whitaker, and showed all these complexities to the way the sentences that I'd never really thought about, and just like
the subtleties of language and communication.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and I love how the conflict of the movie is just a miscommunication.
Yeah,
Later on in the movie, a message is interpreted by different areas as a threat or an inquiry. You know, it's like it's really interesting how
meaning invested into that piece of communication sparks these incredibly different reactions and extreme reactions, big reactions.
Yeah, I really agree. I loved all those aspects of the movie. That I like that it wasn't like an Independence Day kind of alien arrival movie.
Sadly, but yeah.
Yeah. I liked that it was very much just about what this world would do in a situation like that, of how we would communicate with other countries, of what that would be like as far as the military standpoint, the kind of common person standpoint, a scientist viewpoint. Like all of that was really, really well balanced and well thought out of really how we would be communicating, not with just what's up there, but what's just down here on Earth. I thought it was just it worked as a big global, huge, big scale movie, but also just as a really small personal story.
Just a story about a mother. It's incredibly affecting too.
And like Roland Emmerich always tries to have like all the layers and stuff to the tragedies that happen in his movies. Like
it's like
always like the military character.
Well.
Exactly. Like there's the military, then there's the everyman. And there's all that stuff, and like they all get sort of equal screen time, and it just feels like a jumbled mess. Whereas Arrival, you have all that stuff, but you're still always focused on Amy Adams, and you're still always focused on the ideas that the movie is presenting, and you honestly get a greater scale of what's happening in Arrival, even though you rarely leave whatever Amy Adams is doing. Whereas when Independence Day, you're cutting all over the place. You're like, you're with Will Smith punching aliens in the face, and then you're with Bill Pullman, in the White House suddenly. Like, it's but the impact in Arrival is so much greater than it is in Independence Day. And I probably shouldn't compare those two movies because they're two very different kinds of movies, obviously.
They're both about aliens.
Well, I mean, in a way, it warrants comparison, I think, because it's two different takes on essentially the same story.
That's true. I mean, one is just kind of like a good versus bad, and they're trying to kill us, so we fight them. And
thematically, I think they're very different, but on the surface, I think they would be tackling similar subjects. Although I'm going to say, like, I like Independence Day. I think that's an entertaining movie.
Out of here.
In the context of Roland Emmerich movies, it's probably his best movie.
Might be,
I still say White House Down, but that's just me.
I didn't see that one.
We saw that one in theaters together. We enjoyed it.
There was a lot of surprises. How engaging like the scenes were when they're trying to communicate with the aliens. There was a part of me that kind of wished the whole movie just like took place in there, just because those were my favorite parts. Everything else was necessary, because they have to break down everything that they saw. So I didn't mind everything else when they were, in their offices and trying to like dissect the language. But I remember just feeling like my eyes were glued to the screen when they're trying to communicate, just because she would write something on a whiteboard, and suddenly all these ideas in my head, like, what would the aliens see when they see this? Like, what are the million different ways they could interpret that? And then what's their response going to be? And what are the million different ways we can interpret their response? Because it's such a fragile situation. Because like you said, just all these other countries are interpreting the same messages in different ways. And some people are seeing it as a hostile thing. Some people are seeing it as a good thing. And that could have like serious apocalyptic consequences.
It's a movie where the fate of the world hangs in the balance, and you basically don't see a single shootout, or there's one explosion. I don't want to spoil the context, but it's a movie where the stakes are what you would get in a huge blockbuster, where it is the fate of the world hanging in the balance, but where the White House doesn't blow up, where you don't see any cities destroyed, where you don't see any shootouts between or air fights or anything like that, but you still feel that same kind of suspense, and you still feel the same kind of stakes that you would in any other kind of blockbuster movie. It's just focused down on a much more intimate level.
I remember I think it was after you, Dana, saw the movie in theaters. I remember you showing up at your house afterwards and saying like, "Oh, I like the movie a lot," and you thought that I think Jeremy Renner had like this really cheesy line at the end. I remember you talking about that, and so I was waiting for that to happen. I'm like, I wonder what this line's going to be. I can't wait to hear it. And when it came up, I did cringe.
I'm actually having trouble remembering the line. It's been a little while.
It was he was talking to Amy Adams, and he's like, "Oh, I of all the things that I saw during this whole whatever, the thing that amazed me the most was you.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man.
It also
That
he has
is
the
cringy
one
and
ironic
cheesy.
line in the movie
Yeah.
too that always makes me cringe too when he's like, "Yeah, that just happened."
He has to have the Jeremy Renner. Like,
I wish they could have left that on the cutting room floor, but
Yeah.
it's a small complaint for a
Yeah.
movie that is so masterfully well made.
For sure. Like I did cringe at the cheesiness of that last line he had, but I think it still made sense why it was there because of, again, things I don't want to spoil for the audience. But
Yeah, when you do get the full context of it too, there's also another layer, of sort of irony to that as well, that it's sort of undercut by certain other things we're aware of in the story by that point.
Yeah, I think definitely, even though I may have like voiced criticism of that line, I think I can't really underplay how well done the ending is of tying everything together and making you rethink the entire movie. And give you such a deep emotional resonance of just kind of, I don't mean to spoil it, but just really throwing you through the ringer.
We won't mention any specifics for anybody who's never seen the movie, but if you have seen it, it's hard not to know what we're talking about, I would imagine.
It definitely warrants. I just rewatched it fairly recently, threw it on in the background while I was doing stuff, and kind of got swept into several parts of it again. And especially knowing, like, having seen it once and seeing it again and looking at it kind of through slightly different lens, was even better the second time around. Like, as I was watching it the second time, I was just like, man, this is definitely one of the best movies to come out in the last 5 years at least.
I've seen it probably 3 times now, and I have wept all 3 times. It's one of those movies that hits me as hard emotionally as any movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, for sure. It's again, just another hit from Villeneuve. I've seen 3 of his movies, and not one of them is disappointed yet.
By the way, Barney, are you in the Red Room from Twin Peaks right now?
Yeah, I've actually made that joke before. I'm like, yeah, I'm in the Black Lodge. What's up, you guys?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's well framed. It's very it's a good illusion. I could just picture like dancing midget next to you.
Yeah. He's in the corner.
Fireman.
He just told me that gum I like is about to come back in style, so
very good.
I'm really excited for that. I don't know what gum that is, but
you were like, tell me something I don't know.
Yeah, come on, you.
Juicy fruit.
Love juicy fruit, because I love how juicy fruit loses all flavor in like 2 minutes. It's fantastic.
Even better than that is his Zebra gum loses flavor after like 6 seconds.
Yeah, it gets like really dry. And it's like you're trying to chew on a rock. Can't wait for that to come back.
Everything comes back eventually.
Yeah, that's true. That is definitely true.
I've been rewatching episodes of The Return lately.
I still haven't been able to watch any of it since it was all new. Basically, when we were
crazy to think that was over a year ago.
I know, because it still feels so fresh in my mind. Like I think I still remember that whole series, or that whole like season pretty much like scene for scene. I think maybe when I eventually get to watch it again, there'll be a lot of stuff I had forgotten, but like I can think of so many moments that I loved and ones that were challenging for whatever reasons, and I need to get that box set, that Blu-ray box set that they released.
Yeah, it's a great set. It's, as far as Lynch coverage goes, I've never ever seen a movie released of his that goes into such detail on the production history, and actually documenting the scene by scene, day by day, them shooting the movie, him coming up with ideas, hashing things out with actors, Mark Frost, that whole creative process to make it. He usually doesn't grant access to document, like a documentary crew, to do that, and sort of reveal his tricks. But it's like going through it again after watching some of the behind the scenes features, rewatching some episodes. It's just sealed my love for that show. It's such an amazing achievement. I keep going back to it, and it still just keeps endlessly bringing up more and more questions and inquiries. And it's such a stimulating watch. Even I think I can probably just watch it 100 times and still find things to discover, new questions to ask, new perspectives to think about.
It was such an ambitious piece of television, especially that third season, that it's something you'll probably always be able to get something out of every time you return to it. And I've seen the first 2 seasons all the way through like 3 or 4 times, and it's still like entertaining. But like what I really itch to see is the third season, because it was like, I think it topped the first 2 seasons.
I think easily. I'm going through season 1 and 2 right now with Felix.
Really? How far are you guys into it?
We just started season 2,
Okay.
and season 1 is pretty good. I really love the original Twin Peaks, but I kind of realized going back, I really liked the new direction it took in the third season, so much so that going back to the older episodes, I almost have to just be patient, because I'm like telling Felix, like, I'm telling you the third season is mind blowing, but you kind of have to get through 1 and 2 to get to 3, because Felix likes the show, but he's not really hooked into it. And especially once season 2 starts and it kind of varies in quality in some episodes, I think I keep kind of having to remind him, like, the third season is really like the cherry on the sundae here. Like, we just have to get to the third. It's funny, I've never previously, when we went through the show before the third season was even out, I was talking up that original series so much, like, oh, it's the best TV series ever. It's so good, so new and unique and fresh. And then just 3 I think blew it out of the water. I was so impressed by it.
It was great thing about 3, since so much time had passed, like, Lynch could just throw out the playbook and just it was almost like he was starting over. Sorry, excuse me. Like, he was starting over from scratch. He could just introduce all these new characters and these new ideas. He didn't really have to play off of the way season 2 ended that much. Like, it's almost a good thing that the show got canceled in the early 90s, because season 3 would not have been what it is now if he had to continue right off of season 2 in 1992 or 3, whatever year it would have been.
Good point. Yeah, it's good. It's not good that it was canceled so soon before its time, but at least it gave us probably his magnum opus in terms of how much he really crammed into that 18 hours.
Like if he would have done season 3 back in the day, he would have had to have more stuff about, like, Wyndham Earl, and he, Heather Graham probably would have come back, which I wish there would have been stuff like that in the third season too, but it would have played a much more prominent role. And even though I do like those side plots, I do think that they're some of the weakest points of the whole series. So, like, I think that it couldn't have been nearly as ambitious, because I mean, it would have had to air on cable television, but The Return got to be done for Showtime, so he could make it like R-rated, and they could be like really long episodes, and he could take more chances. And we got like David Lynch totally just let go, and he got to do whatever he wants, and it's such a treat.
Totally. So recommend that Blu-ray box set, that season 3 box set.
Yeah, I still need to get it myself.
Yeah, it's the gift that keeps on giving. Yeah, it's amazing.
And I still have only seen Fire Walk with Me one time. Yeah,
that's a good one too. I like that.
I like that more the second time watching it. I hated it the first time I saw it, but rewatching it the second time, I still didn't like it, but I was able to at least appreciate it.
It's a hard movie to like. Yeah. It's not a movie that I am gung-ho to watch, because it's really entertaining and fascinating. It's a really emotional movie, a very, very highly, intensely raw,
it's an unpleasant movie.
Yeah. It deals with some really dark subjects. Even remove it from Twin Peaks, it's really just a story of abuse.
Yeah.
And it's a hard
Basically,
movie.
it's a woman who suffers for 2.5 hours and then dies at the end.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
But I think it's so well done in terms of the direction, and Cheryl Lee's performance is
she's great,
simply incredible. I mean, she's just so good in the movie. I think it definitely warrants like that kind of rewatch, especially in the context of the series. And especially, yeah, with
I'm
how
doing a
it's
thing.
treated.
Yeah, I'll look at it later, bud.
Is your nephew
Sorry.
here?
Yeah, he wanted to show me his new Beyblade.
Bring it on the stream. I'd love to see.
Yeah, he's in his underwear. So.
Yeah, YouTube won't allow that.
Yeah. Sorry. Anyway, what you were saying.
But yeah, just I think Firewalk with Me. I love it as a piece of the Twin Peaks mythology, and especially after seeing season 3, I think Lynch really, really was making a spiritual successor to Firewalk with Me. Because more than anything else, I think, especially in the last couple parts where it's directly lifting scenes out of that movie and expanding on them, I feel like that was a really, really good companion more than anything else of those two things specifically. It also is a spiritual successor to the first 2 seasons of the show, but I think it was really kind of digging deeper into the feelings and kind of harshness that was being explored in Firewalk with Me. I mean, we've talked about the ending of the finale, and it's still divisive. Like I watched it recently, and I'm like, man, I still don't know like where I really stand on it. I love it because it makes me grapple with so many feelings, but it's not a pleasant feeling by the end of that series.
It's also just one I don't understand too. Like the ending itself and the feeling, because like I liked it because I didn't expect it. It made me like completely rethink like what is going on in that world, but I have not at all been able to make sense of it. And I've only seen it once, so maybe after watching it a couple times, I can kind of come up with my own interpretation. But yeah, that like it's just one that it's very, very divisive. I mean, I read a lot of stuff on the internet, like of Twin Peaks communities and websites and stuff on Facebook, where people love it and people hate it. And I'm on the love it side, even if I don't know why. I'm on the love it side.
Yeah, I think too many people underrate that of just liking something just because you like it.
Right.
You don't have to be able to explain it. It stirs some kind of emotion in you. That's enough reason.
Yeah, I think that if I could easily explain it, then I wouldn't like it as much. Because, I mean, if it was that easy to wrap your head around, then it just wouldn't be like as complicated of an idea or as complicated of a story beat or something. Like that's what's great. That's what's great about Twin Peaks, the whole series, is that it's weird and you don't really know or fully understand what's happening. And that's why it's so intriguing and so great to experience that world. So if the ending of the return was just like, oh, that's what's happening, then it would to me, it would feel disappointing to fully understand everything.
Yeah. What he really did was leave mystery intact in that world. And, a lot of people are talking about, I hope there's a season 4. It could totally pick up where it left off, and that'd be awesome. Yeah. But I think the reason why he ended it like he did was so that the world of Twin Peaks wasn't wrapped up in a bow, and closed, Laura Palmer, case closed. He left it with the way I really think it should, is that the mystery will continue. Yeah. And I think that's a feeling like at the time was hard to accept, but now retrospectively, that's what really makes it all work, I think.
Yeah, it gets people talking. It gets people saying like, did it have a happy ending or a bad or an unhappy ending? Like, and everyone thinking like, oh, their interpretations of how like things were with that ending, things are erased from the timeline and stuff. Like that's what good art does. It gets people talking. So it's hard for me to hate on that. I don't think I can.
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm. And I remember it was years ago. I was like, oh, I should go through all of David Lynch's movies. That was just something I was going to kind of do on my own. And I watched a bunch of them, and I rented Fire Walk with Me. And obviously I hadn't even seen Twin Peaks at that time. And I was talking to you, Henry. I almost called you a different name.
You've done it before, so.
I was talking to you. I was like, yeah, hey, I got Fire Walk with Me. I can't wait to watch it. But you haven't seen Twin Peaks yet. I'm like, oh, that's right. I didn't even realize like I hadn't seen this show. I almost kind of wish that I still watched Fire Walk with Me anyway, just to see how that movie would work on me, even though I had no context for it. Because like you said, like aside from the show, it's still an effective movie about a woman who's being abused in all kinds of ways. And I always wondered what my reaction to that movie would have been if I had never watched the show first. And you know, I did end up watching the show, then watching the movie. I would have been very puzzled by so many things. I still am, even though I've seen the show. But I'd love to reach out to someone, or have someone reach out to me and say like, "Hey, I watched the movie before I saw the show, and this is what I thought." I would love to know like how people reacted to that.
Going in cold, that would be interesting.
Yeah, especially since like the movie is a prequel to the show. So if you were to watch everything like in chronological order,
if you intend on watching the show after the movie, then it kind of spoils a lot of the twists of the show.
Just takes a lot longer to get the same pieces of information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is kind of why the reason I usually don't recommend the movie if people haven't seen the show, because the thrill of guessing who killed Laura Palmer, that whole thing is such a enticing thing to continue the show.
Oh, right. Yeah. You do see the murder in the movie. That's right.
Yeah. So I usually have never, when I do recommend that series, I usually will steer people away from watching the movie until they watch the series. But yeah, just if somebody doesn't care, like they probably don't want to like invest the time into watching a TV show, it'd be interesting to gauge their reaction to the movie itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to see how the movie would stand. Yeah, but I'm with you there. If like when people like debate, oh, what order should you watch the Star Wars movies in? I always say like the order they were made.
Yeah. I think that's the best bet. Yeah.
Yeah. I've kind of stopped caring about that though. Like because there's things as like a kid, like everyone always asks, what movie, like what should we start with, like to expose my kid to Star Wars, what order should I show them in? And I really thought about it. I don't remember which Star Wars movie I saw first. Like I don't remember if I saw A New Hope or Return of the Jedi or
I remember coming to that series to the games.
Yeah.
Shadows of the Empire.
Right. Yeah.
And,
I remember playing that. Yeah.
I was never really I didn't really start caring about what order things went in until like probably like middle school, of thinking like, oh, there's like a chronological order to these movies. And it's like, if maybe if they're that age, you can think about like what order to show them in, but just like put on a Star Wars movie. And like, it doesn't,
who cares? They're just movies.
Yeah.
They're made to be enjoyed.
And I bet you a kid would probably like Phantom Menace just as much as Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah. I have a coworker who said his daughter, I think he said she's like 8 years old. She's just now really getting into the Star Wars movies. And he said her favorite is Attack of the Clones. She loves that movie. Wow. Yeah. Like, hey, there you go. Kids aren't influenced by what anyone else says. They just like what they like.
That's good. Because I think I know I had seen the first Star Wars. Like I saw A New Hope before I saw Phantom Menace, but I don't ever really remember watching Empire or Jedi before I saw Phantom Menace. So I saw Phantom Menace in theaters and I loved it. And
as did I.
Yeah, and so then I went on to watch the rest of the original trilogy, and I remember when I first sat down and watched that whole trilogy, the only movie I recognized was A New Hope. So I'm guessing that my order went 4, 1, 5, 6, then 2, 3.
Yeah.
And it did not affect my love for the series. I ended up loving it just like anyone else.
Yeah, I think. When you're a fan of something, you kind of do your own research and fill in all the gaps. And I think there's something to love. I think, especially for a kid, there's something to love in all those movies.
Yeah.
I loved the prequels when I was younger for much different reasons than I like them now. I'm not huge fans of them nowadays, but I still like them. But to me, like Phantom Menace was just as good as Empire Strikes Back
I remember being absolutely convinced that the prequels were better when I was younger, because I saw the prequels in theaters And the original trilogy I only ever watched on tape, and they weren't that impressive to me.
Yeah,
but
it's like
Phantom Menace, on a big screen, and I got to see the pod race, in a theater with this incredible sound and picture, and was blown away by it. I didn't have that same experience with the original trilogy.
Yeah, it's kind of like when like you're a big fan of a certain band, and people want to get into that band, so they ask you, oh, what album should I start with? It's like, I don't know, just any one of them, I guess.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, too many people want perfection out of the stuff that they consume now. It's like, you're never gonna get it. Just start. Start listening to the band you want to listen to. I've had discussions with people on like streams before, saying like, oh, I want to watch this movie, but I don't feel like I'm ready. Like, first I have to watch this movie or that movie, or I have to read this book or do this research. It's like, you're never gonna be ready. You just need to watch it. You just need to do it.
Yeah.
How are you going to know when you're ready? You haven't seen the movie, so you won't know.
Terrible example, but recently I just watched the third X movie.
Hey.
That's a great example.
I haven't seen the first two X movies, but that didn't stop
you haven't?
Me. No, I've never seen them. That didn't stop me from watching the third one. And it wasn't really my choice. I was looking for a movie to watch with my dad, and we were clicking through on Hulu and looking for something to watch, and we got to that one, and my dad is a big fan of the first movie, but funny enough, he's a bigger fan of the second movie with Ice Cube.
Okay. State of the Union.
Yeah, he really likes State of the Union.
It plays on FX all the time.
Yeah, and he said like, oh, I like the one with Ice Cube. And we said, okay, let's give this one a shot. And we were both pretty let down. It was a really, really, really over the top movie. Like, if I was in a different mood, maybe I might have enjoyed it a little bit more, because it's very silly. It's very self-aware of how over the top it is, and I was just kind of like, I guess I didn't like that it was so self-aware of how goofy it was, because every 10 minutes Vin Diesel looks at the camera and like, that just happened, that kind of stuff. And there's a character in there who is very, very clearly like a comedic relief character, who is written in there just to be that person who's like, oh wow, you just turned a motorcycle into a jet boat, like that's awkward.
Yeah.
And it just kind of was it's just too.
I was thinking about this today. I heard a quote from Guillermo del Toro a little while back. I don't know if he originated this quote, but he was the one I heard it from. He said, he was talking about Shape of Water, how it's kind of a throwback to kind of a more sentimental kind of filmmaking. And he was saying, like, I don't believe in cynicism. Too many people these days mistake cynicism for intelligence. And I thought that was a very perceptive comment. And I was thinking today about that, and just thinking about how so many movies now try to detach themselves with irony, or the big word now, meta. Everything's so meta. And I had my own addition to that. Like, too many people mistake cynicism for intelligence now. I would say too many people mistake irony for originality now.
Oh, yeah.
That just because a movie is commenting on itself and telling you what it's doing, that's kind of fooling people into thinking, oh, this is something new. This is something original. It's not doing anything original. It's just opening up the watch and showing you how it works. It's not doing anything new with the watch.
I would have liked X3 a lot more if it had just, I guess, stuck to its vision a little bit more, and not try to take the Deadpool approach of, wow, look how silly this all is. Like, we know that it's a silly movie. I like it more when it's straight-faced, and something like
Jason and I talked about that. He was saying that's why he hated the new King Kong movie, Skull Island, because there were just too many moments of characters saying, like, really? We're not going to talk about the crazy thing that just happened?
Yeah.
You're in a movie. Just move on.
Yeah, I can totally accept unrealistic, crazy movie scenarios, that stuff that can't happen in reality. I don't need someone to tell me that, wow, like, did that just really happen? Like, it's a movie. I can just suspend my disbelief, and enjoy it because it's fun.
But I guess that's the thing. People are so cynical now. They need at least that assurance that like, oh, okay, so the movie is just, it's not serious, it's just being a joke. So I don't have to like try to bring my own irony to it and be cynical and making fun of it. It's making fun of itself. So I'm in on the joke, so I can feel like an intelligent, perceptive audience member and just sit back and enjoy it. Like, people just can't take anything straight faced anymore, and that's kind of sad.
It's like these movies, they try to be big and over the top and batshit crazy, but they also want to appeal to people that don't care for that stuff. So they try to be big and also try to be like, see, like we know what we're doing. So like if you don't like that kind of thing, at least like you can be along with us, and like we get that it's crazy. It's like they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. Like they want to appeal to everybody, the people that like it and the people that don't like it, so they make fun of what they're doing.
Ends up pleasing nobody.
Yeah, like
or maybe everybody. Like stuff like that is really popular.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, like that. This movie made money, and it didn't do well domestically. I think it did better internationally because I didn't. This was pointed out to me. I didn't realize it at the time, but the movie was cast with a major actor from every major like film going country. Like there's like the female lead is a really popular actress from India. The bad guy is Donnie Yen. So you know,
China,
really big in China.
Yeah.
There's like an Irish guy, I think, a British guy, like basically just big actors from different regions, I think, just to increase the appeal in those specific regions. And it kind of felt like a movie by committee in that way.
It's trying to sell for every territory.
Yeah, make it for everybody. And, you know, there's goofy stuff for kids. There's sexy stuff for adults. And it's just definitely one of those big action movies, almost like a Roland Emmerich type of movie where it's just has its hand in a lot of different pots and doesn't really do one thing particularly well. But it had promise because the opening scene was so over the top and ridiculous that I was really ready to have fun. It's him, you know, Vin Diesel jumps off of a tower and he's on a skateboard and he's skating. And I was like, oh man, that's great because skateboarding's so outdated now. I love that they're like just going for it and they don't care. And then he skis down the side of a hill, but it's like he's skiing on like dirt. It's not even like a snow scenario. And it was really, really silly and really fun. And then as soon as that scene was over, like they comment on it pretty much of like, wow, that was really ridiculous. And like stuff just it's not that blatant, to be honest, but the pacing just kind of halts just because they have to take a minute to comment on the fact that it's so over the top and we get it. And yeah, I just, that tone just really brought me out of it.
Yeah. It'd be nice if they could just commit to the concept and just.
Yeah. I'm starting to appreciate sincerity more and more and more as everything just becomes more and more detached through additional layers of irony.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for something that just has the nerve to actually commit to itself.
Yeah,
that to me takes real guts.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Shape of Water is a good example of that. It is a really insane concept, but it is done with total sincerity. You know, a woman and a fish man fall in love, and they genuinely fall in love, and they don't apologize to the audience for it.
And Richard Jenkins doesn't go like a fish man. Okay, like, he doesn't.
Yeah, he just kind of gets it.
Yeah. He just cares about Sally Hawkins, and he wants to see her happy and do whatever he can to make that work. And that genuineness of the characters, and that they don't have to have that moment of like, this is really weird for the audience, and just recognizing that, you know, with people in your life, you know, if somebody is going through a time when they're really vulnerable and they're investing in you as something you would potentially find weird, you wouldn't say like, okay, that's weird. You just say, okay, I'm here to help you. I love you. I care about you, and I'll do whatever it takes to see you happy.
Oh, and sure.
I loved that tone. I loved that approach to the characters in that situation, even though it was very non-typical.
Yeah, I think,
very refreshing.
Yeah, he wouldn't have to worry about like catering to the people that wouldn't buy the concept, because if like you didn't know what was going to be in that movie, then you're kind of an idiot, because it's on the poster, it's in all the promotional stuff. Like that, she bangs a fish in that movie. Like, so it would be totally stupid and superfluous if there was a moment where they went like, that was insane, we just flooded a bathroom, and it's like that's what the movie's about, so let it be about it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
You have any others you want to talk about?
I didn't see anything new. I just the OMSI Sci-Fi Film Festival just wrapped up.
Oh yeah, you saw quite a few there.
It's a lot of movies. Bought a festival pass and just saw as many as I could. A lot of them I saw on the big screen for the first time. The Matrix, both Blade Runners, Last Starfighter.
Nice.
I saw some classics. Forbidden Planet was in there. Man, there's just I saw a bunch. I'm trying to scan through my brain real quick and think back. I missed Soylent Green. I wanted to see Soylent Green, but I missed it. And Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which was that was my favorite of the whole festival.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that sealed that movie is really sealed as one of my favorites now. I'm seeing it in that format.
Was it like were any of these movies in 70 millimeter or
no digital projection?
Okay.
But the quality of the projection there is fantastic. Blade Runner especially looked like a new movie. The original one was such a good quality projection. And some of the ones that haven't been restored recently, like Last Starfighter, didn't look that great stretched onto a big screen. But still, it was like, what other opportunity you're going to get to see that movie in that format?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was. I'd say the highlights out of the festival were seeing Close Encounters, Blade Runner, and The Matrix on an IMAX screen. All three of those were just made for immersive. Oh, Eraserhead was another one.
Oh, hey.
And Dune as well.
What?
Yeah, and even
that
Dune
was the best one.
I'd even throw Dune in that list of movies that work really, really well in a big format.
Yeah, those incredible sets and everything that they built.
Yeah, you can, Dune, when you just look at it from a story perspective, it's not great as far as the way it's told. The story is good, but it's just not well told, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But the sheer scope of the movie and the sets and the design of it, seeing it on that screen was pretty amazing, actually. And it made me appreciate it in a whole new light. Eraserhead too, not for the visuals so much as the sound.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've seen Eraserhead in a theater, and
it's got one of the best sound designs of any movie. I think they actually spent more time designing the sound than they did shooting the movie.
And you can tell because when you leave the theater, you don't even realize what an amazing journey that audio takes you on. When you enter the real world and you're just listening to the actual ambience of the room, you don't even realize that you've been carried away. All your senses have been carried away on this different planet, really.
Wow.
And it was surreal when it just cuts to black and all the audio cuts out and it's just complete silence. It felt like just being like slammed back onto Earth. And I've seen the movie several times, but it's the first time I really felt just like what people really must have felt back when they first saw it in the 70s, of feeling like I feel like I went to a different planet and saw the inside of an alien's brain. Like it was one of the most incredible, like, immersive experiences I've seen.
That's really interesting. Because all the movies you listed, I would go, yeah, those would be great experiences in a theater, The Matrix, Close Encounters. But I guess I never really thought of Eraserhead as being one of those ones you have to see on a big screen.
Definitely.
There's a reason it played for like half a decade, at like a single theater in New York, because people just kept coming back to it. It's one of those ones you had to see. Yeah.
And its effect is still so intoxicating. I was ready to see it again after leaving the theater. I've seen it at home several times, and I've always appreciated it at a distance. But really just getting completely invested in that movie, I left and I was like, that is definitely one of the best movies ever made. Like, it is so unique in its vision and so fully realized in every aspect. And that one, along with The Matrix, Close Encounters, Blade Runner, what I think all four of those really shared was that ability it had to just completely immerse you in the world that it creates, and the amount of detail that you can really see when it's on a screen like that.
Yeah.
The Matrix was, Matrix has always been a favorite. That one works well, even if it's on a VHS tape. But when you're just seeing the majesty of the visuals, the sound, the music, it's a loud, fast, crazy movie, and it just does not let you go once it gets you in its grip.
Yeah, and Matrix I saw when it was new in theaters.
Yeah,
I think I was 99, so I would have been 8 years old. Probably a little too young for it, but it was probably the most amazing thing I'd ever seen up to that point.
I bet. I'm really jealous of you seeing Blade Runner, because that's on my bucket list of movies to see in a theater. Because that's probably, like, when it comes to just like pure visuals, that's probably my favorite movie. And the last time I saw that movie, it was right before I went to see 2049, and me and my buddy Levi pirated that movie because we wanted to watch it. Like, we wanted to watch it before, but we didn't own it or anything, and it wasn't on Netflix, so we pirated it, and the quality was awful. Like, it was super grainy, like pixels and stuff. A lot of the time it was just blurry, and it was bad, but it was still gorgeous even at that. So, like, I've seen it a couple times on Blu-ray. I've seen it really bad pirated quality, and I can only imagine what it would be like in a theater with a really great projection. Like, because it's just so gorgeous. Every shot's like a painting, and with shitty quality, I loved it, and I can't imagine what it would be like in a theater.
That was the only one I actually saw twice in the festival. I was ready just to see it once and call it good, because I was trying to see as many as I could, and not fatigue myself. But then I saw Blade Runner once, and I was like, I got to see that again. It was so great. Actually, the first time I saw it was an even stranger experience, because it was a dinner and a movie pairing.
Oh yeah.
It was called Real Eats, and OMSI does this once every couple months, where they actually curate a meal that you eat to go with the movie.
I wonder what Soylent Green would have been.
Funny enough, the next one they're doing is Silence of the Lambs. Yeah, I don't know what they're planning for the menu, but if like patrons start to go missing during the screening, I'll know.
That would add to the experience.
Yeah. But the Blade Runner one was really cool because there's the obvious ones, like when Harrison Ford's eating noodles at the beginning. You open up your little noodle compartment and you're eating like a ramen. And then there's some other just kind of like more clever ones where when you see Coca-Cola ads, there was a Coca-Cola braised beef slider that was like beef and like in a sandwich, but it was like, it kind of tasted like Coca-Cola. And so it was really unique. The chef who did it was really creative, and all the food was really delicious. Like if somebody's smoking, they gave us like a smoked date with bacon, and it made it kind of feel like you were smelling smoke, but it was also, really delicious at the same time, and it's kind of enhancing the visual of what you're seeing at that same time.
That's like seeing a movie in 5D, I think, because like you have 3D, which comes at you, 4D where you smell, but 5D is when you taste.
Yeah, it really was. I've never experienced that component of movie watching before. It was like taking Odorama to the next level. My favorite part was the part, spoiler for Blade Runner, the part where Roy Batty crushes Tyrell's head. They gave us fruit gushers. And so like right when he like squishes his head, you like bite down on the gushers so blood just like bursts in your mouth. It was really funny. So I was wanting to see it a second time after that, just to kind of like not, because people were laughing like when the gusher thing happened and people knew like, oh, connecting bloody gore in your mouth with this image. It was funny, and I kind of wanted to see it again, just remove myself from that. and just see it just as the movie. And both times I saw it were individually great experiences. And the second time it was actually paired with Blade Runner 2049. So got to see the first one and the second one back to back in theaters and that big screen. And both movies are remarkable and really warrant that large format screening.
Mm-hmm. Wow. How much is a ticket for like a Real Eats showing? Is it significantly more than just your standard, $8 to $10 movie ticket?
Yeah, I think it's $30. I bought mine with my festival pass for the sci-fi festival, so the whole festival pass for me was $50. If you were just buying a Real Eats ticket, I think it was $30. But you get a lot of food, actually. There was 8 kind of larger portion, not large, but like decent amount of food kind of portions. There's like 8 sections. And there was a baggie of just sort of like smaller bites, like candy or, smaller things that you would just throw in your mouth during a quick scene. And so you basically get like a dinner and a movie for that price. And you try all kinds of weird things, like, I'd never tried. What were some of the things? One, Coke braised beef was one thing I've never tried before. Or there was like a really nice it was like a basil tomato something sandwich. I can't quite remember all the details, but it was like a really unique flavor combination for the sandwich that went with one of the scenes that was really cool. Like, it was kind of gourmet eating it for a really reasonable price. If anybody's in the Portland area and is looking for a unique movie experience, check that out. It's really fun.
Did you have any others you wanted to talk about, Brett?
Yeah, I guess we have a little time. I gotta get ready for work and stuff.
Didn't mean to crash your guys's.
No.
You
You added to it. The only one I really was wanting to talk about was why can't the name? Why is the name escaping me? The James Franco movie where he played Tommy
Disaster Artist.
Disaster Artist. Balls. Why did I not? Anyway,
you
Disaster.
saw
I've seen Disaster Artist. Have you seen it, Tyler? Okay, I said your name wrong.
Yeah.
God damn it. What did you think of the Disaster Artist? Have you read the book and stuff?
Yeah, I read the book.
Oh, okay. Did you?
I borrowed it from Denny.
Yeah, I did too. I remember when you got the book and you were like reading through it and telling me a bunch of the stories that from it. It's like, whoa, that's crazy. Because I've seen The Room, many times. I've seen it in the theater and stuff. And I was excited for the book, and you had great things to say about it. And I eventually read it myself. And what a crazy story. And I was curious as to what the movie was going to be like, because, a movie has to be 2-ish hours. It has to kind of be a bit more focused on fewer things. Books can be more expansive and stuff. And I really liked the aspect that the movie chose to focus on, like just their relationship between Greg Sestero and Tommy Wiseau. And I loved like how loving the movie was, like how the movie really looked at Tommy Wiseau in such a good light, even though he was a dick a lot of the time on set making the movie. But I mean, Greg Sestero like does have a love for the guy. The book didn't feel like it was as
there's a little bit of bitterness in the book.
Yeah, it felt like there was quite a bit of that. But there also is like a way of appreciation. Greg Sestero does appreciate Tommy for who he is and how much Tommy positively impacted his life and stuff. And I really like that that's what the movie chose to focus on, because just reading the book, I didn't walk away with a whole lot of that sort of understanding. But the movie gave me some of that and shed a lot of light on just the story of their relationship, the story of the making of The Room, and just of Tommy Wiseau himself. I thought it was really good. I haven't seen any other movies that James Franco has directed, but he kind of knocked this one out of the park. Like, he did a really good job. His performance was good. All like the makeup and stuff was was well done. Everyone kind of looked who they were trying to be. I just thought it was a really excellent movie.
Yeah, this has been like the first directorial effort from Franco where it feels like he actually knew what he was trying to do.
I've heard that his directed movies are kind of messy. I don't know though.
Yeah, I've seen a couple. They're mostly literary adaptations. There was one I actually really liked called Interior Leather Bar, which is about it's a fake documentary about James Franco trying to recreate the scenes that were cut from William Friedkin's Cruising, because legend has it there are all these like gay sex scenes in Cruising, this 1970 something film that William Friedkin did with Al Pacino that was very controversial. And apparently there was all this gay sex stuff that he had to cut to avoid an X rating. And the movie Interior Leather Bar is both an attempt to recreate those scenes from what details are known about them, and it's also a documentary, a fake documentary about James Franco making these recreations. And I actually thought that was really good, a really interesting examination of like Hollywood homophobia and all the resistance he encounters for wanting to do this. And you see like agents and producers saying like, why would you want to make something like this? Why would you want to make a movie about gay sex? Like, what's wrong with you? Mm-hmm. And he's just like, I just want to do this. This is an interesting subject to me. And all the resistance he encounters in Hollywood of just the homophobia of people not understanding that. But the only complaint I would have about that one is it feels like the first 2/3 of a really good movie. There's just no final third. It's only 50 minutes long, and I swear to God, it ends midstream. Like you're really absorbed, like, oh, where's this going to go from here? And then the credits roll. It's like, why didn't he finish this? So it's more like a really good, like long short film.
Yeah, I have never heard of that movie. Like,
really?
Yeah, I never heard of it. And it seems like every time I delve into James Franco's IMDb page, I find a lot of movies like that. It's like, when did he do this? Like, when did he have the time to do it? And when did he like I've just never heard of this. I've never heard anyone talk about it or anything. He has so many just strange projects that he's done. And that's something that Seth Rogen commented on. I saw an interview that Seth Rogen did for The Disaster Artist, and he talked about like why he thinks James Franco is so drawn to the story, because, you know, Tommy Wiseau is a strange guy, and pretty much no one understands him. No one understands like The Room and you know, and the making of story. Like, no one really knew what he was trying to go for. It was just so confusing. And he says, and Seth Rogen said that James Franco probably has to feel that way with all these weird art projects that he does, because people don't see them, and when they do, they're just really puzzled and perplexed by them, and they don't like them. And so he thinks that might be a lot of why James Franco was drawn to Tommy Wiseau as a person and this whole story. And I find that aspect really fascinating, and I'd love to see some of these movies that James Franco has done. He's done a bunch of them.
Interesting. Yeah, I think Franco plays that role with a real sincerity.
Yeah,
that it does really seem like he genuinely has a connection with Tommy, in that he understands that struggle and that feeling that he really wants to communicate something, but he just doesn't really know how. And there's some kind of barrier there with how he communicates, how he's perceived, how he really wants people to see him, but he is just viewed as an outsider or a strange guy, this moron who doesn't know what he's doing. Really kind of brings out the tragedy in that, and really makes you feel sympathy for what it must be like to be him, and have this vision and have this want just to be liked by people, but just to be seen as such an outsider. And I really thought that he did the story justice and did him as a character justice by not treating him like like how most people see Tommy Wiseau, as like this weirdo to point and laugh at.
Yeah, the movie never does that. It never laughs at him.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly points out the strangeness of his character.
Yeah.
And it highlights the things in the book that, illustrate him as an incompetent director. But you understand him as a person and what drives him, and why he, why it's so important to him, to have Mark on his side and or Greg, I should say, have Greg on his side, and why that relationship is so important for him, because he finally has that person who is just telling him, you should do this, you should, make this dream happen, you should, I'll be in it, I'll help you make it. And like just having that bond with somebody who just creatively engages you in that way. I really thought it was a really well done movie, just about the nature of the creative process, and also how important it is to have somebody like that in your life who's a positive supporter, of just who you are, just be who you are, and support each other no matter what your vision is, no matter who finds it strange or who thinks it's, ridiculous or stupid, to still just believe in that person.
Yeah. Also kind of a tribute to sincerity too.
Yeah.
Right.
Kind of like putting everything out there and putting it all out on the line.
Yeah. And that's like, it's kind of a scary thing to do when you're an artist, is to be that open and that honest.
Yeah. That's why everyone hides behind irony.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's really admirable that Tommy Wiseau made The Room, because it is such a reflection of the way I assume he sees like his friends that he's had in the past and stuff like that, and the way he's been treated by friends and girlfriends, and the way he feels betrayed. And it's really interesting how Tommy sort of sees himself as a modern James Dean, and how he idolizes him and wants to be just like him, and how he like tries to be all American, sort of. Like the book illustrates that really, really well. And how so much of like these things and ideas and the way Tommy sees the world bled into The Room. And in that way, The Room really is an incredible artistic achievement, because like
it's
art,
a complete reflection of a unique individual.
it really is. Art is the best way to express yourself. And when you watch The Room, it's puzzling. The movie is puzzling, but it does give you an insight onto like an individual human being. And good movies don't do that. But The Room really does. That's why it resonates so much with people. That's why it resonates with me.
Yeah. It's great that the disaster artist enhances what you get out of The Room, because The Room is always going to be one of the great midnight movies. But either reading the book or watching the movie really makes you appreciate it as a artistic statement, as this vision from this really unique person that in a really roundabout way is saying something really interesting of somebody who feels so betrayed by the world around him and just wants to be liked and wants to be accepted, and views himself as such a good, honest person, but just feels he's being wronged by every aspect in his life, and everything is falling apart around him, and leads him to, ultimately a very low point.
Yeah.
Not exactly the most self-reflexive movie, but a sincere expression nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I know I felt that way, where I felt like the whole world was against me and stuff. I can connect with that on a certain level.
Yeah. I'm glad you liked the movie. I really thought it did a good job of adapting the book. And I think actually even through the production of the movie, because Sestero and Wiseau were both involved in it, they kind of rekindled their friendship. And that production of The Disaster Artist, the movie, led to them working together again on Best Friends, the new 2-part movie. And hopefully you get a chance to see that one, because I'd be really curious to hear your thoughts on it. I really, really liked Best Friends, both parts of it. I thought Greg Sestero did a really good job of writing a character for Tommy Wiseau that fits his personality, and that he could just be Tommy Wiseau, but it works as a character. And it's a strange little story. It takes some interesting turns, and it really does a good job of continuing that relationship of what makes their dynamic so interesting and unique, and exploring that. You saw part 1.
I saw part 1. I did not see part 2.
Part 2 is it dissects the friendship aspect of it a little bit less than the first part. Part 2 is more like a straight up like noir movie. But part one really kind of breaks down the eccentricities of Wiseau and their relationship and their friendship and their bond. It's a good movie. It's really, really good. I hope it finds a distribution on like DVD and stuff soon, because it's worth seeing.
Yeah, I'm hoping it'll at least get put on some sort of streaming platform. I don't know if it's on one you can pay to watch yet or not.
Yeah, I don't think you can right now. It screamed through Fathom Events. It was like a one night only theater screening that I was able to see it on. And I haven't seen any notification that it's coming out on any streaming, or it may be set through, some provider, but I haven't heard personally.
I have to keep an eye out for that one.
Yeah, for sure.
So you probably have got to take off then, Bart?
Yep. I'm not even dressed for work yet. I gotta get going.
Okay. Well, I still had a couple I wanted to talk about too. Like, I watched Unsane.
Oh shit! I want to talk. Yeah, I want to talk.
Yeah, we'll have to save it for next week.
Yeah, we can start with that one because first of all, I just want to know, did you like it?
I really liked it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I love that one too. But anyway, we'll save it for next week.
Okay. So, any plans? No, anything you playing in theaters you want to go see? Anything for next week?
I will watch Quiz Show. I've been saying that for weeks, but that is the one I'm definitely going to watch. Finally, I'll get around to watching it. So that'll
Quiz
be
Show
one.
next week.
It will be. I swear. I promise. And if not, you can kick me off of the show.
Okay. But you, anything?
I don't have anything on my watch list right now. Mainly for me, I wanted to see Black Klansman, and I just saw that recently.
Oh, you did see that?
I did see Black Klansman.
Okay.
Really liked it. There's not really too much else I'm like really itching to see right now. Just kind of waiting for things like Halloween to roll around. And those kinds of movies. Yeah.
I'm getting pretty excited for award season this year. It looks like a lot of good stuff is getting ready to come out in the winter release schedule.
Mm-hmm. For sure. What are you going to be watching, Henry?
Probably just be watching more stuff on Netflix, and I know there's some stuff on Amazon Prime that I wanted to watch, because that's where I watched Unsane, and I watched John Cameron Mitchell's new movie, How to Talk to Girls at Parties, which I also liked. And I know there's something else on there that was recently added. Oh, it wasn't recently added, but Todd Haynes' movie, Wonderstruck. I really want to watch that one as well. So I'll try to watch that one. And I'm sure just a few other things on Netflix too.
All right. Good weeks for all of us.
Yeah. All right.
Well, thanks for joining us, Danny. It was fun.
Yeah, thanks for letting me take over for a little while. And it was fun, just being able to do this again. It's been a little while since been on one of your streams, but also for us just to talk BS for a little bit about movies.
Yeah, for sure.
So, all right, hopefully we'll do it again soon.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody who may or may not have been watching, thank you all for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it. And we'll be back next week to talk about more movies. Thanks so much for watching. You can subscribe to our channels. You got my channel, DisRegarding Henry. You got Denny's channel, Idiot Box. I'll put a link to that one in the description for this video.
More videos coming soon.
Yeah, it's working on stuff.
All right.
I got some stuff I shot years ago, but I'm finally editing now. So I'm about 30 pounds heavier in the footage, which is a little embarrassing, but I'm gonna put them out anyway.
I was in an in-between point in my hair too, where it wasn't quite long enough to do what I'm doing now, but it wasn't short enough to actually just look good. So I'm really distracted by my hair in those videos, but we're putting them out there. And Bretflix, you can subscribe to his channel, watch his videos. There'll also be a link for that in the description below. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
See you next Wednesday.
See ya.